Look at the opening odd, minus 195 for Chimaev, plus 155 for Robert Whittaker. Now, if this was a 3-round fight, completely understood, right? But this is a 5-round fight. We're getting more and more common with the 5-round co-main events here in the UFC. And my question to you, man, is like, am I seeing something wrong? Because I'm on the Chimaev side here, and I do think he has a very clear path to victory. And I think this is going to be a hard fight for both guys. But 5 rounds, man, we know Chimaev has arguably like 1 round of like hard, like go for the grappling, and then everything starts to taper off. Does that mean he can't get a takedown anymore? No. But if it trends the way that the Kamaru Usman fight trended, you gotta like Bobby Knuckles. What do you think?
Absolutely, Derek. Not only the Kamaru Usman fight, but the Gilbert Burns fight as well, right? Has that one great solid round. And if he can get it done in that round, he's an absolute killer. But after that, we see the game plan start to unfold, right? We see the flaws that Chimaev presents, and Bobby Knuckles, right, the Reaper, can get in there and exploit those holes like the best of them.
So, question right here, as a bettor, right? Just like coming from a betting perspective, I don't care who you're on. All you're looking for when you're looking at a fighter is you're saying, can you get to this one spot that I believe that you can get to? And if you can, if the answer is yes, that's all that you can ask for. If they get a finish, awesome. If they don't get a finish, you know they got to the spot and that was worth betting on. We know Chimaev does one thing really, really well, and that's take really ridiculously far shots from places where you shouldn't be shooting from and use the cage as kind of like a backboard to be able to then climb up to the hips, gather control, use a lot of energy, pick them up and slam them on their head and do all that fancy stuff. But he gets to a spot. And every time that we bet on him, he has gotten to that spot. When we bet on him versus Usman, he got there. Can he get Robert Whittaker's back and put him in a position where he's mounted on the ground like he did to Usman, or put him in a position where there is an actual threat for a finish here in the first 2 rounds? Do you think that's a real possibility for Khamzat?
I think it's a real possibility, Derek. So much so, the one note I have is, especially for Bobby Whittaker or Bobby Knuckles, is a Masvidal style flying knee. That first go, is it worth the shot? Because more than likely, he's going to get you down in that first round, right? We've seen it time and time again. So do you just jump into it right away? Do you just kind of surprise him? I do think Chimaev is going to be able to get him down multiple times in this fight, but the question is, can he hold him down? Can he get the finish? There's a lot that's hard to finish Bobby Knuckles.
In a 3-round fight, I was thinking to myself, I was like, all right, man, I could see Chimaev easily taking the first, and now it's do or die. You have to win the next 2 rounds if you want to win against this guy. But in 5 rounds, I don't know if I like the way that it trends if it goes long. Now, I do think that Chimaev, man, like this dude has the ability to get the takedown and hold you there. But what are the judges scoring that right now? You know what I mean? If Whittaker could land in some good shots, it'll have a good argument the way that Usman did. But when you looked at the final tally, everybody knew that Chimaev won the fight against Usman. And I don't want to keep bringing that up because Usman's a 170-pound fighter. Whittaker, this is middleweight. It's a different ball game. Even though Chimaev is still the bigger fighter, it's a little bit of a different ball game. But Chimaev also doesn't have to suck, or it was at middleweight at the end of the day, right? So I guess that doesn't even matter. But AJ, is my concern valid? Because Bobby Knuckles, while he got the huge win over Ikram Aliskerov, right? Like that's not Khamzat Chimaev. And in a striking matchup, I like Bobby Knuckles much more than a dude who's going to just relentlessly try to take you down for 25 minutes. So is this a correct concern to have, or do we need to wake up to say, hey, there are some of these guys that are the new generation of fighter that, listen, man, these are the guys that are going to be taking over. Whittaker is going to have to find his new spot in the middleweight division, and it might not be that top 3, top 4, top 5 fighter. What do you think?
No, I think you have a right to be concerned, Derek, especially when presented with a stand-up opposition, right? Like you started saying, Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns, Bobby Knuckles, these fighters that have done it for so long and seen all these style of fights, he's faltered a little bit with them. And until Khamzat Chimaev presents or shows his ability to get past that obstacle of not being able to take somebody down or getting past the first round and what happens then, that's when I'll be able to be ready to declare him as that new legion of fighter. Until then, we're still kind of wondering where he's going to be going.
Yeah, but he hasn't lost. So that's the hard part, right? Is it just like, I mean, the dude isn't losing. When you win, you just kind of got to roll with it right here. So, all right, let's take a look at the value side. The value side is Robert Whittaker, who is currently, just like Max Holloway, a plus 200 underdog. Current live odds, minus 245 for Khamzat Chimaev. So this is the same exact odds that we have for the title fight we just talked about, Topuria versus Holloway. And again, we're going to ask the same exact question from a price standpoint. There's not a lot of fighters who can be a minus 245 comfortably over Robert Whittaker, right? Do you like the price for Chimaev?
This one I do, Derek, and only because we've seen Robert Whittaker struggle, especially like in the DDP fight, right? We've seen him struggle with grappling and being held down. So if Khamzat's able to do that, that's his best aspect to win. It seems, at least on paper, this makes a lot of sense. So I like the odds.
I think it's interesting that you brought up the DDP fight because I thought the same thing. I was like, man, you kind of gave up the takedown a little easy, and then you didn't really do a. I mean, DDP is a fantastic grappler, but I didn't see the effort that was needed to have the urgency to get back up to the feet immediately. And if you do that against Chimaev, it's a wrap. But Whittaker says he's ready for the takedowns. So if we like the odds right here for Khamzat Chimaev outside of just a pure money line price, which I'm not sure if I'm comfortable taking minus 245 pure, just like money line for Chimaev, but I am interested in some of these props. What do you think about the plus 190 TKO or the plus 250 submission?
I was leaning towards that plus 250 submission, man. It's going to be very hard to put away the Reaper with a knockout, but if you're able to get him down, get the backpack on him, you can solidify a submission. It's still going to be a very hard fight.
I don't agree, man, because I think that if he puts him in the same spot that he did for Usman, I think he could have got a TKO against Usman. I just feel like he was just conserving energy. I'm not sure what was going on, but you have a man flattened out, belly down. I mean, if he can replicate that, I think he can definitely get the TKO. But we all know that Chimaev is going to try to finish the fight because as this fight extends, it's just going to go in favor of Robert Whittaker. So I have to take the Hail Mary right here. Plus 600 decision prop for Robert Whittaker. If you're going to hedge this, that has to be the hedge, right?
That has to be the hedge. What's the over under? Have we talked about that yet, Derek?
We have not, but I could bring it up right now. So the over right now, 2.5 rounds, plus 105 for the over, minus 135 for the under. What are you taking?
If you're hedging for Robert Whittaker, right? You like that plus 600 odd. I like the plus 105 for the over a little bit better, right? 2.5 rounds out of a 5-round fight, so halfway through. But man, if you're a Bobby Knuckles better and you want to take a flyer on, like Derek's saying, that's a hell of a comeback for you.
I'm curious to know, what does it mean to you that the decision prop is the same? Because that's the one thing we haven't talked about.
I was looking at that earlier, Derek, and I'm at a loss for words. I don't understand how those two are the same. We've seen Robert Whittaker in 5-round fights many a time before. Khamzat Chimaev, we've seen him struggle in those. So the math isn't mathing on that one.
Imagine Yoel Romero, right? But imagine Yoel Romero at like 28 years old or something like that. You know, I don't know how old Chimaev is, but he's 30, right? So even a 30-year-old, because Yoel was already old by the time he was fighting Whittaker. Like, imagine that version. I don't know, man. The consensus pick, it is Khamzat Chimaev for the overwhelming grappling. I'll just say this. This is the final thing that I want to mention here. 82% takedown defense in 23 fights for Whittaker. Will it be enough? That's the question, because Chimaev has landed a takedown in every fight that he has had in the UFC, except the GM3 fight where he knocked him out in 17 seconds. So, consensus pick, Khamzat Chimaev.